All right, good to see everybody today. Back for our LinkedIn Live series, me and Jill through Echelon Leadership. It's been a pretty great summer. Had around worked with I don't know maybe over 10 schools in our retreats and multiple cities, but just really excited to get this 23-24 school year started up. And for today, what we're going to focus on are academic walkthrough tools to drive instruction. At the beginning of the year, one of the focus of all school leaders is making sure you set that strong foundation for the rest of the school year. And a couple of tools that we'll share today and strategies that we'll share today will help support the work that you all are doing at the beginning of the school year. So we're going to go through some tools, Jill and I. We also have a guest that's a school leader that's in the work right now. Shipnia Bytyqi from Explore Schools that we're going to have share some of things that are going well, how she meets with the team, different things that pop up that are difficult in the work, and we'll do that today. So for now, I am going to hand it off to Jill. Yeah, we'll get started.
Great. So, as Anwar said, today's focus is on the academic tools that you use as instructional leaders and coaches to drive the execution of your mission or your vision. And what that requires of you is to go into classrooms and observe and determine the most important next step for a teacher to make. And one thing that supports doing that well is a strong tool. So before we actually get into our tools, looking at this picture, and if you're online live, feel free to drop it in the chat. What do you see? Now I'll give it about 10 seconds to land so you can explore it a little bit more. And while you're still looking at the photo, that's essentially the question that we're asking coaches and instructional leaders to answer when they walk into a classroom. What do you see? What do you see that you like about what you're seeing in the classroom? What are some things that are coming up as maybe you want to work on it? I got someone here wrote a frog. Yes. One of the things that you can see in this photo is a frog. The other thing that I know of that's in this photo is a horse. So if you didn't write in the chat and you saw one of the two, now maybe you're thinking, oh, I didn't see the frog. But thanks to Taisha, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, I saw that frog as soon as she put it in the chat. And maybe you were like, I didn't see the horse, but now I see the horse because Jill said I'm supposed to see a horse. And Anwar, you got the little toggle thing. If you could circle around the frog and let people see where the frog's eye is and then where the frog's legs are. That's the horse's eye. You're on the horse's eye. On the other one. There's the frog's eye. And then the frog's leg. And then when the photo is turned, you can see where the frog's legs become the horse's eye. And the horse's, and the frog's eye becomes the horse's nose. So now that I've told you what to look for, most of you can access both the frog and the horse. And if you can't, call us for a coaching session afterwards. We'll work on this and a few other things. But what we want to do as academic leaders is really be clear with ourselves and our coaches. What do we want you to look for when you go into the classroom? And so today's session will be helping you to determine when you want to look for frogs, when you want to look for horses, when you want to aggressively monitor, and when you want to work on ratio or something else.
So one way to connect the work that we're doing today to some of the work that we're doing, we're working with leadership teams. We have an Echelon bird framework. So there are different bird energies that we have encountered before and that are a lot of folks use. We identified about 5 birds to focus on, but the one that we want to talk about today is crowing crow, sorry. And We think that this specific bird energy is very important at the beginning of the school year for a couple of reasons. One, some of the traits of the crow and crow are mystery, intelligence, adaptive, and then in some cultures they are as a guardian of earth. But on a team, how does it show up? It connects a larger purpose, names and actions detract from goals and the larger purpose. So, for example, at the beginning of the year as a team, you're focused on that big purpose, right? And if something is not connected to that larger purpose, someone within the team in good teams will always speak up and try to say, hey, this is detracting a little bit. So we might be focused on aggressive monitoring. Hey, but tracking is something that's coming up. How can we make sure that we're all aligned on the same page as a school? Can support the tech and organization of actions. Again, at the beginning of the year, organization is critical to lay a sound foundation for the rest of the school year. Adaptable sees multiple solutions or multiple pathways to a solution. Again, you're all, as a school leadership team, you're all focused on that same goal and seeing multiple ways to get there because there's multiple things that are going on in the school, multiple personalities, multiple ways of doing things, but making sure that everyone is going towards that same solution is critical and ensures all decisions are safe, supportive of all team members. So one of the reasons why we're bringing this piece up is that at the beginning of the year, especially if you're a newer leadership team and you've just gotten together, ensuring that folks feel safe and feel supported is critical so they can continue to do the work through the rest of the school year. Setting up that strong foundation at the beginning is important so you're not getting that call in end of December or right before break comes in. Hey, I'm not sure if this is the right position for me, or you're looking for different roles. One thing that helps mitigate that is ensuring that you create that safe and supportive environment for folks at the beginning of the school year. So wanted to introduce one piece of our framework, some of the work that we feel is very important at the beginning of the year. And Jill, I want to hand it to you if there's anything that I skipped over, if you wanted to add to this piece.
Sure. Just specifically into today's session, we're looking at the tools that are going to drive the instruction in your schools. So, in that first bullet point, when you see a teacher making moves that are going to negatively impact your student achievement goals, this is the time to bring in that energy, that crow energy, to really support what you do in your live coaching and in your one on one meetings based on the data you collect in the tool. And specifically, as it goes into adaptability, a strong coach can name the problem and see multiple ways of getting that teacher in front of them to be able to execute um, more on the actions that they need. So, that adaptability of naming the non-negotiable that the teacher needs to hit, and then in a coaching session be able to take your data from the observation tool and work with that teacher on their best way to authentically change their actions to get you that end game that you want. So without further ado, unless you have anything else, I think we're ready to jump into our first three tools, and I think we have four total to share with you all. So the first two tools that we'll share that we use a lot in our one-on-one coaching, and then we use these during our school studies, are the classroom observation tool and the co-teaching classroom observation tool. So I will go through the classroom observation tool in depth and then go through just the first part of the co-teaching classroom observation tool. So this is a quick hit tool, meaning it can be used in a 5-minute observation, or to completely fill it out is probably more about 10 to 12 minutes for an advanced coach. I rarely use it with people to collect information on every section in here, but we'll name prior to going in that we're going to hone in on aggressive monitoring ratio, and maybe an equity check. And then that's where we spend our time collecting data. So if you could head to the top part, and you'll see Actually, let's go to the bottom part, very bottom part first. Thanks, Anwar. The bottom part is just a guide of where most of the um, items that are in here, where you can read more um, information about the items listed in case you need to grow yourself in the content, or if your coaches need to grow in the content. So I like to include that for leaders so that you have a place to get continued support if you're not sure what participation ratio is, or how to increase your participation ratio. You can look through the TLAC 2.0 pages and get the content. So
And
heading up,
GBF is get better faster, just in case.
oh yeah, thanks. And JD Quick Tally is just not anything I invented, but just a tally that I do. And multiple people do it. People have been doing it since the beginning of time, but people are always like, where do you get this from? And so I always just say that's a quick tally. It comes from tallying. So if you head up to aggressive monitoring, many people will do aggressive monitoring towards 100%, and they will only do it towards on, our kids on task. That's an important quick hit, but that's not where I actually concentrate with my folks. This space is for us to do an aggressive monitoring on our students on track to meet the objective, or are they not on track to meet the objective? Or am I not sure as the coach either that the kid's not on track or that what the objective is that the teacher's teaching? I will have multiple coaches say to me, Jill, well, if the objective's not posted, I can't do this. And that's not true. If you're a good coach and the objective is not posted, you will be able to look at the student work to see what the intended objective is, and jot that down in the section that says objective. So as a coach, to the best of your knowledge, if the kids can do number 3 on the page, what is the skill that they're able to do? So you would jot that in the objective, and then you would just do a tally. And I always say to coaches, you spend no more than 3 seconds before you make a tally. So you look at a student's work for 3 seconds and you tally whether they're on track, you're not sure, or not on track. And for this to be reliable data to use in a coaching meeting, I tell them bare minimum they need a data set that is a third of the class. So they don't have to go around and get all 21 kids in a class. If they collect data on 7 kids and 7 of them are on track, that's a pretty good indicator that the class is where they need to be. If they collect data from 7 kids and 3 are on track, 3 are not on track, and 1 is not sure, then I say extend your data set around how you collect the data. The last piece I would hone in on this aggressive monitoring is this is a quick check to get a quantitative number. There are several more advanced ways to teach teachers how to aggressively monitor, and there are more advanced ways to aggressively monitor. But this is targeted at a coach getting a quick check on are kids on track to meet the objective, or do I need to do something in the moment to intervene on a misconception? So do I need, as the coach, to live coach this with a takeover? Do I need to do a verbal whisper? Or is this something that I'm going to hold and use in a one-on-one coaching session? Last piece is aggressive monitoring for those of you who have teachers that you feel can't grow anymore. Like they have their management down, they know their content really well. This is your tool, the aggressive monitoring, for you to come to the table and engage your that strong teacher in a good conversation around the data that you're getting and comparing it to the data that they're getting. Heading down to ratio. So just a really quick circle on, is the class majority teacher, 50-50 teacher student, majority student? And then I just like to keep the definitions of participation ratio and think ratio front and center for people, so that they can say, yes, the participation ratio is high, but the think ratio needs work. And then they head down into the next section on ratio, questions, writing, and discussion. And again, these are directly related to TLAC 2.0. And the way we use this is I just do a check mark if I see it present in the time that I'm there. And then I often will just circle where I think if something is not present, but it might be the action step. So right now, most of my schools are somewhere between 1 week and 4 weeks in. That everybody writes is getting a nice circle, because that's a great way to start including that into the classrooms to increase ratio, and something that I'm not seeing as often. Anything else on ratio, Anwar? I'm just looking at time and wanting to make sure we stick to it before I head down to the management and rigor pieces.
No, I think you covered it, especially how to use this to determine how to see how ratio is popping up in the class. Only thing I would just recommend at this point of the year, participation ratio. Personally, I would look for that first to make sure all students are actively engaged in academic content, just to make sure that's the standard. That's what students are doing. That's what they're used to. Because then later down the line, it'll make the think ratio piece a little bit more simpler. So
Yeah, absolutely. So the next section is from Get Better Faster, and this is where many schools use their first 90 days tracker. And so I'd like to include this just because it speaks to where a lot of the schools that I work with are, and it helps them to organize this in a pretty simple way and then include the ratio and the aggressive monitoring. So again, as a coach, if you see something and it's strong, you would put a check mark, like strong voice is fine, what to do directions are fine. And then you're realizing, ooh, whole class reset is not happening, I'll do a circle. Or if I realize strong voice, what to do, and whole class reset are strong, but the teacher is struggling on the academics after they get the class to pay attention, then I like to look to rigor and see if I need to work usually on internalizing lessons and writing exemplars. So again, it's as the coach, you're putting a check mark if it's present, and you're circling it as a potential action step for the coachee. The last two parts, I've worked with many schools over the last few years who have been revamping their curriculum. So this is just a place if you've done specific work around that, or if you see something that is very inclusive and you want to give a shout out, you would add it in here. Or if you see something that's actually problematic in a novel, etc., you would just jot it down here as something to follow up later in the section 4. And the last piece is real-time coaching impact. I have several people that'll go in and do live coaching. They'll do verbal takeovers, they'll whisper coach, etc., and they sort of lose that. They do it and then they kind of leave and they're like, okay, now what? So it's important as a coach to jot down, what did you do in terms of live coaching, so that you can follow up in your one-on-one, and that live coaching versus one-on-ones versus data meetings begins to have a consistent thread of your impact and the way you're supporting the coaching. Based on time, let's hold the co-teaching one, Anwar, and head over to your document, but you will have access and you guys can just write to us if you want to get a copy of the co-teaching observation tool and the tracker.
So thank you, Jill.
Yep.
And just wanted to talk about how it's so important to norm for excellence at the beginning of the school year. When I was principal of Explore Schools, and the speaker that's going to come on is doing a work at Explore Schools right now, so really excited to have Shipnia join us. But one of the tools that we used was a walkthrough rubric at the beginning of the school year. Over the summer, we created a strong 6-week plan or term 1 plan to align on what are the most important things that we want teachers and classrooms to be doing every single day. And each week there was a different focus. Now, this is similar to what many schools did, but what we found was not only having the documents or understanding what the form was or what we should be focusing on, but aligning as a leadership team on what that looks like and what that is so important. So first I'm going to share the tool and then I'll talk through a couple of things that we did. So we looked at two different things, right? What are students doing, which we call student actions, and then what are teachers doing, what we call teacher actions. So when we did a quick 10-minute walkthrough for this particular week, the student actions, professional desks, materials, tracking on mic, academic language, and then we're doing a quick rating on what it looked like, whether it's 4, 3, 2, 1, depending on what the rating at your school is, that you could use that rating. And then we did a tally, which would be helpful. For example, hey, 20 out of 20 students were in professional desk, professional posture. Good job to the teacher. Then next, going into teacher actions, these are the areas that we wanted to focus on the most. I think this might have been like week 4 or something. But urgency, reinforce positive behavior, rapid feedback, which we called aggressive monitoring, just switched up the language a little bit on our end. Habits of discussion and work for 100%. So again, giving a teacher a rating, and then identifying a tally on ones that we could tally up, like what did it look like? Were both students engaged, and or what particular notes that we wanted to add to the teacher? We shared this with the teacher, and then we collected all this information and talked about it as a leadership team to see where we're at. What do we need to focus on? Do specific teachers need different coaching goals? Is there something else that we need to focus on for the next week? Should we repeat something the next week? But as I mentioned before, in addition to having this document, meeting with the team, aligning with the team, making sure we're all on the same page was very critical to making it work for us. So because, I'm not in a school day to day, we work with different schools, but not leading the team day to day. Jill is work with multiple schools, but not in that work. We have a special guest to come in, Shipnia Bytyqi, which we told you about before, to come in and talk about some of the work that she's doing and she's done in the past. So I'll just prompt her before we get her on. But Ms. Bytyqi is the academic director at Explore Schools in Brooklyn, New York, and just want to give her an opportunity to talk about her experience and some of the things that she's doing right now to ensure that teachers are all on the same page. So let me make sure we could get you on. Hey, Ship, can you hear us and everything?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good to go. So Ship, I
Okay.
queued you up a second ago and just wanted you to share what's been working for you in your walkthroughs and what's the process you all did as a team over the summer to get ready for the walkthroughs now. And also, what are some challenges that you have come into with your team, or if there's any new staff members and stuff like that. So just want to give you the floor to just kind of talk about the work that you're doing.
Yes, sure. I think you said it. It's like norming so that every leader is on track to look for the same things. And I think our leadership team, we've got 7 people, and like individually we can do so much, but we might all be working from a different vision. So over the summer, we had several meetings where the tool you shared, we're developing that tool together and outlining the criteria for success together, and then really digging into like what should those criteria for success look like in order for this to be a success in the classroom. And that helps us get away from like personal biases and like what I want my classroom to look like, to just what does it look like for this aspect, for this input to be excellent across different personalities, across different kinds of teachers. And I think that's been really important because we have different personalities on our team. So us aligning with each other over the summer takes a long time. I would say like it takes a commitment from a leadership team to say like, all right, in July we have a 2-hour meeting where we're developing all of our criteria for success, where we're reflecting on what happened last year, and really pushing ourselves to be the most precise and concise as we can. And then, we hit the ground running last week, and we have a term 1 rubric that everyone's really clear on. And I can trust that every leader is going to go into a space and look for the exact same thing and be able to use the tool in the same way. We've also, I would say, a challenge has been like prioritization. I think with everything leadership, everything start of the school year, it's prioritization. And so this year we've also committed that every team meeting has a walkthrough in it. So if nothing else gets done, we do our walkthrough together and we debrief. It really allows us to make sure we're talking from a place of data, from a place of facts, and we're not missing the forest for the trees. Because sometimes when you have conversations about running a school that are apart from what's happening in the classroom, it turns into just talking, right? And just talking doesn't get us to our term one goal. So we've prioritized a walkthrough in it, including our one-on-one meetings.
And so, Ship, real quick, I think we lost you for a second. Maybe you can add that last piece.
Mm-hmm. Aligning on every leader meeting has to have a walkthrough in it. And that really helps us to ensure that we are talking from a place of data, and no matter what happens, because you can get caught up in the little things. Working at school, that by the end of the day, sometimes it could feel like you did nothing. So just aligning on ensuring that we have specific times where we're walking through and we are prioritizing that as the one thing that does get done.
So, Ship, and you all are at the beginning of the school year doing this. If you could give like one gem to folks that might watch this that are considering doing walkthroughs right now, what would that be?
One, could I make it long? I think norm on a tool, and then calendar yourself for the times. So many special things are happening in schools. Like I want to just be in the hallway and be in the classrooms all the time. But if I have on my calendar, these are the times that I'm doing the thing that we committed to, then it'll get done. So I would say norm on the tool, norm on the time, and just do it. The data is going to help you see what things are really like and get you out of your head. So if anything, it'll make your job easier.
Thank you. Well, Ship, I know I'm thinking lunchtime is coming up soon, or flex time is happening right now. I know the schedule might have changed since I've been there.
Oh, it's busy. Yeah.
But it's busy. So just want to thank you for making the time to connect with us and join us for our LinkedIn Live. And I'll check in with you later. But thank you so much, Shipnia.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me. Have a great rest of your life.
All right,
bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Shipnia.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I just want to say we told Shipnia what our topic was, but we did not do much other than that. And I think it felt like we couldn't have landed any of those timestamps any better than what Shipnia named. So I want to shout her out for that. Really appreciate that.
And Jill, anything that you want to add? I know we have a couple minutes. I know we had to rush through some of the other resources. Anything that you want to add or clarify before we go up to show our upcoming events?
Just the simplicity of the difference between it's simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. So I couldn't have said it better. Shipnia said, norm on a tool, make a tool, norm on a tool, and calendar it. That's the way I heard it. That sounds so simple, but that is a lift. And so, like she said, she was back in July trying to select that tool, and they're still on that norm. So sometimes it takes folks a month to norm on a tool. Sometimes it takes them all year. If I'm working with someone, I like us to norm on that tool in 3 months, and then and be practicing with it that whole time. And then make sure that your team is normed on that tool, meaning everyone will score it the same. And that takes feedback from you as the leader to the coaches of whether or not they're filling it out at the level that you would. So it's simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy to do and to lift, to get everybody on the same page.
I totally agree with that. Because some of the work I worked with Shipnia for 5 years, and seeing that particular tool change from year 1, year 5 when I left, and then I think this is year 8, going through the same iteration of a similar process. I'm sure it's much better than what we're doing now, and we definitely didn't spend that much time in July when we first did, but over time we got better at it. So yeah, so with that, wanted to give folks an update on a couple of events that we have coming up. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be in New Orleans for our Echelon school study, our first school study this year. Excited to check out Lorette Academy. And is it are they in
So we have Laureate and
Laureate?
Elan Academy. So just want to give a quick plug. Elan is technically, they are in New Orleans, and they're in New Orleans proper on the West Bank. And Elan is a school where that's scored in the top 10 in Orleans in math and reading the last 3 years, I believe. So a great school to see in action. Laureate, we consider it part of New Orleans. If you're familiar with the area, you would know it's in Jefferson Parish, which is what we call counties. And Laureate's is K-8 school that's been in the top 25% of open enrollment schools in Jefferson Parish on the West Bank. So 2 schools that are proving what's possible, which is Laureate's tagline. And just a further plug, we will use these 3 walkthrough tools in the school study. So if you like these walkthrough tools and you want some practice with Anwar and I in real time, this is a great professional development opportunity for you to sign up. And I think we have about 4 spaces left. We like to keep the group between 12 and 16 people so that you will definitely get one-on-one feedback from Anwar and I in this if you sign up for it. I'm tossing it back over to you for the LinkedIn Lives.
Yeah, I know, those are your schools, so you did a much better job than I would get shouting them out. So thank you for saving me there. But on October 5th, we have our October LinkedIn Live, and November 2nd, we have our November LinkedIn Live. So feel free to tune in, and we also record these on LinkedIn. We have them on YouTube as well, and we share that out also. And then on November 29th, we have our second school study in Nashville. And Jill, maybe you can touch on those schools as well.
Just based on time, I'm going to say Purpose Prep and Nashville Classical. Both have been in operation for 10 years. Check out the schools on site, both beyond proving what's possible and expanding in North Nashville, West Nashville, and East Nashville. Founders Legra Newman and founder Charlie Friedman, 2 amazing schools. That school study is almost, it's very full. So I think we may have 1 spot left at this point, maybe 2, but get on the wait list for that to make, if you're interested. I know, Anwar, you hold more of the back end than I do. So I would say it's still okay to register, but if you're interested, do that sooner rather than later, because that'll be full.
And then lastly, we're doing retreats in the winter. So if you're a leadership team and you're like, hey, we need to realign ourselves and get ready to close out the school year on a strong note, feel free to reach out to us about our winter leadership retreats. And that is it. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody, for signing on, and those of you who watch this later. But it's been great to connect after a little 3-month layoff.
And thank you, Taisha, for engaging in the chat. We love getting the feedback.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know you was in there, Ty. Shout out to Isa. Be there next Thursday. All right.